building. Red man is in the building. DJ Marcel Mom's in the building. Beat the rebirth of the reborn as I rebuild, reconnect with this rebel, redefine and raw skill. I realign, readjusted, refocus, reanalyze what's real. First had to refuel, reactivate to reemerge, reevaluate, recalculate, not return, redefine, re-energize, get reacquainted. Rhythm gets incorporated, roots remade, invulnerable, inviting, invincible, inventive one, which leads most inviolable. Get involved, invest in these youths, kid, invigorate, in youths that are realness. Insecure, not more like inhumane inside a game. Shut your mouth, use your inner voice, stay in your lane, inaugurate those with incentive to want to innovate, insistent that those who inspire we will initiate. What? And that's in a nutshell, nutshell. Ha! Fight dog in a nutshell. New York finest in a nutshell. Look. Unpredictable, I'm so unavoidable, unfathomable, the love again unconditional, unequivocal, indestructible, unthinkable, spit is understandable, how to flow unforgettable, unbuckled out, uncold, different Ferraris, unclean eyes, up, inaudible, hospitable, thus one sick individual, untraceable DNA, wicked flow unforgivable, and that's just me in a nutshell. I'm unallowed, those unwelcome, you're unapparent, it's undisputed, I got you stuck like under a magnet, under a cabinet, unofficially, though I had to get a number. Write it up under the logo with a laminate. The unbeaten, undertaker, undercut, and the unexplainable. Tariting, underhand, undenounced, baby, you under the mansion. I unspeakably hope that we have an understanding. And that's just me in a nutshell. Nutshell. Bust in a nutshell. Reggie, yeah. I keep moving, I keep blood, I keep fire, I keep an attitude. Keep.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. My name is Noelle Figueroa, and this is episode 23 of the P.W.P sessions. I'm very excited and grateful to have yet another opportunity to interview yet another awesome poem in their own right by the name of Lyrical Faith. Now, before I dive into the conversation, I'm just going to do a brief introduction with some preliminaries, and then we'll dive right in. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. All right, so this is episode 23. And for those that are not familiar with the P.W.P sessions, it's an extension of the Poets with Purpose Poetry Workshop. It's where I interview new or established poets, authors of poetry, and I feature a performance of their work along with an audience Q&A session. I am Noelle Figueroa, aka the poet, aka the anointed pen. I am a poet, author, blogger, workshop facilitator, and event host, and I'm the creator of the P.W.P sessions. Now, tonight's guest is Lyrical Faith, also known as Imani Wallace. Lyrical Faith is a Black American educator, activist, and spoken word poet from the Bronx, New York. She is the 6th ranked woman poet in the world as of 2021. She is an inaugural Bronx Poet Laureate finalist. She is a 2019 and 2021 recipient of the Bronx Recognizes Its Own Award in the category of spoken word, the 2018 NYU Martin Luther King Jr. Oratorical Contest champion, the 2016 Syracuse University Martin Luther King Jr. Unsung Hero, and the 2015 Syracuse University Poet of the Year. She is the founder of Poetry for Service, the founder and president of Black Greek Poets, and the co-founder of the longest running open mic and showcase in Harlem, the Harlem Bomb Shelter. Through her poetry, Lyrical Faith strives to inspire, educate, and advocate for intersectional and institutional issues by merging the arts and activism from a faith-based worldview. She is currently a social justice education doctoral student at UMass Amherst. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Lyrical Faith, also known as Imani Wallace. Hey, Lyrical Faith, how are you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you good. How's everything?
Okay.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Awesome, glad to connect with you tonight.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So I'm going to get right to it. I'm going to start off with a basic question like I ask all my other guests. who is Lyrical Faith or who is Amani Wallace? Like, how do you define yourself or describe yourself?
Yeah. So I go by Lyrical Faith, at least as far as the stage is concerned. And who am I? I'm an educator, an activist, and a spoken word poet. I'm from the Bronx, New York. But that's always my tagline, right? I think in general, who I am is an artist, a creative, a woman of faith, somebody who has used spoken word poetry, who has used writing, who has used reading, who has used connecting with people as a means of a release, as a means of like an outlet to better see the world and to better understand myself. And somebody who's grateful for the gifts that God has given me and who wants to use those gifts to sow into the world and give back to everything that has sown into me.
Awesome. That's what's up. Now take me back to your beginning of your poetic journey, because I know everybody's poetic journey is different. What was the point when you realized that, you know what, this is what I want to be about? You know, this is how I want to express myself. Like, what was that defining moment for you?
So I started writing because my 6th grade English teacher, her name is Miss Brown. Shout out to Miss Brown. She was a artist. She was a creative. She was a dancer. She was an actress. She still is, and is still doing her thing. And she wanted to delve into a spoken word poetry unit with us as a class. And that was the first time I had seen something like that. She showed us Def Jam poetry videos, and we are learning like the art of spoken word and how it is an interactive art form that we are able to use our thoughts and our feelings to write emotion and expression and passion, and then be able to stand up in front of our peers and perform that. And so for me, it was very different from anything that I had seen as far as poetry is concerned. In 5th grade and down, it was all about old dead white men, Shakespeare, this, that, and the third. And so I wasn't really as into it. Actually, growing up, I wanted to be an actress. And I didn't, I guess I just accredited that to me being somebody who's really expressive and, being somebody who has a connection with the arts, but just didn't know how to, I guess, put that into action in a particular way, because I wasn't somebody who could sing and I wasn't somebody who could dance and I wasn't, in these programs that my friends were in and all that. So I just didn't do it. I was like a bookworm, and I was a bookworm, and I was like somebody who liked to write and journal. I kept diaries my whole life. And when I was introduced to spoken word, I was like, wow, this feels right. It feels like this is what I was missing. And so I wrote poems for that class, and my classmates and my teachers and my superiors liked them so much. They encouraged me to continue writing, continue performing in the school talent shows and this, that, and the third. And I just continued on throughout the years, writing and performing and trying to kind of engage in poetry and in spoken word in whatever ways that I could, with whatever programs that I could. So, yeah.
That's what's up. Now, when you first started writing, what were the subjects that you first got into?
So the first poem was for that class, like I said, for my 6th grade class, and I was 12. So the first poem was actually called "This Is Poetry," and so mind you, we were learning from, or we were watching Def Jam poets, right? And so, that style from the 90s where everything is very like, we were just, everything is very like, just like kind of in your face, and, it's fast and it's lyrical and it's, so it was kind of like that. It was kind of like my emulation of that. And I was basically talking about like, my words are like this, my words are like that, my words are like this, that, and you know what I'm saying? So it was kind of a compilation of like, how I like to express myself and like what I felt like poetry was. So that was the very, very first poem. I can ever find my 6th grade notebook, I would be able to find that poem. It's probably at home somewhere. But after that, I actually just continued to write, and I kept things to myself. I wrote in the form of journaling. So I mentioned, like, I kept diaries my whole life. And when I found poetry, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna just diary in the form of a poem. And so now it's like these daily events are happening to me, things with school, things, with home. I'm upset. I have a crush. I'm, like having family issues, and I'm just writing poems in the form of diary entries. I'm just writing poems about it and just keeping it to myself. And then when I, as the high school years went on, I got connected with a few performing arts programs. One of them through an organization, organizations that I am, still a part of till this day, Impact Repertory Theater and the Harlem Bomb Shelter, both of which the artist Anubis are a part of. He founded the Harlem Bomb Shelter, and I came on as a co-founder. And for me, it felt like that was like my first poetry home. It was like a space where I was able to, be like, oh, this is mine. A part of this. I helped build this, and I helped to bring people and poets together. And also, shout out to Urban Word NYC, because I was able to connect a lot with those poets, and they were, that was another community that was an influence at that time. And I was able to connect urban word poets to the Harlem Bomb Shelter, and it just became like a whole thing, like a whole family thing, like a whole New York City teen poetry family thing. And then I went off to college later on that year and found my next poetry home, which was on campus.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Now, what was your motivation to stick with the poetry? Because, like you said, you started at a certain grade level and then kept up with it till you got to college. Now, most people might have stopped at that point. What was your motivation to keep going with it?
Yeah, I think for me, poetry was the first space that allowed me to feel like my whole self. There was always kind of something missing throughout my life. I always felt very, very silenced. I grew up the youngest of 6 siblings, and I constantly felt, very sheltered and, just not listened to. And I was always very smart, and I always got good grades. And, I always put a lot of my energy and my pressure into school and all of that. But I really, really needed an outlet. I needed to find my voice, and poetry, writing and performing did that for me. I was like, oh, this is something that I have that you can't take away from me, that no one can control, that no one can overshadow or overpower. This is my gift, right? This is my gift.
Mm-hmm.
No one else in my family does poetry. Everyone,
Right.
Other siblings had their own gifts, right? My brother played basketball. My other brother's a rapper. My other brother's a graphic artist. My sister's a dancer. So everyone else had their own lane, right? And then there was me, and I was just like, this is the first time that I felt home within myself. And so once experiencing that feeling, there was just no way that I could give that power away. That was mine. That was mine to own and mine to grow and develop and foster. Also, being a woman of faith, I know that if God calls you to use your gift, you need to use it. You need to use it, right? You need to use it.
Right.
Or you'll lose it.
Definitely. Yeah, I totally agree with that, because, this is my gift. God gave me this, like this platform, all forms of my creativity, God gave it to me. I didn't go to school for this. I have no formal training or teaching. This is all the anointing of God. So, I'm totally grateful for the opportunity to, be a light with my creativity, to be able to provide a platform, but it's also just as you mentioned, use your gift or lose it. Don't be like the people in the Bible, the people with the talents that buried their talent. We got to use it while we're walking this earth. And I see, and from observing your performances, you're doing just that. You're having an impact. You're making a difference with your words, which is leading me to my next question. Like, who you've mentioned your teachers in terms of helping you to develop your craft, but do you give credit to anyone or anything else in terms of you developing your style and your creativity as a poet?
I mean, yeah, my poetry homes and my poetry mentors. So I did, I mentioned my teacher, and that was like my first space. And then in high school, like I said, I connected with Urban Word NYC and Impact Repertory Theater, Performing Arts program for youth, and co-founded the Harlem Bomb Shelter. And that was like my first poetry home. And then I went off to college and I went to Syracuse University. And the first thing that I wanted to do was find the poetry program on campus. And thank God there was one. And so that poetry program was called Verbal Blend. And that was my next poetry home for the next 4 years. And the creator and director of Verbal Blend, his name is Cedric T. Bolton. He still till this day is my mentor, will write a letter of recommendation for me if I call him, if I really needed him for anything, saying like he is my mentor. He really has my back. And throughout the years, as from a freshman all the way until a senior, Cedric was somebody who helped me grow my voice. It was like I found my voice, in 6th grade and in middle school and in high school, but then I was able to grow my voice in college because I had this whole thing where I just didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't feel like I was good enough. I'm a freshman and I see the other students in the poetry program that, they're older than me, they're juniors, seniors, and they're so good. And there's poetry slams that happen and everyone is just so dope. And I'm just like, dang, like, well, why am I not like that? And, and so Cedric was one of the people that told me, no, you're good. And you need to believe in yourself and you need to, if you do these things, if you edit your poems, if you continue to come to the workshops, if you, encourage yourself to compete in the slam, you can continue to grow. You'll be one of the giants like in our program and on this campus. And so honestly, I think in addition to just being a woman of faith, that's where the name Lyrical Faith came from, because I used to didn't believe in myself and my voice, and writing and performing and growing with my words allowed for me to exude that faith and exude that courage to believe in myself. And so it's a constant reminder that my words help me to believe in myself, right? And I want to help others believe as well. So yeah.
Yeah, see, you brought up a very, very important point right there, believing in yourself, because I hear poets like you and Anubis and other people, and I'm like, wow, they're on another level that I'm not on. However, we as poets or artists in general have to be careful to not compare ourselves to other poets in regards to where they are on their journeys. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, we all have something to bring to the table. We're not called to be carbon copies of someone else, especially in terms of being people of God, people of faith. God has a unique purpose for us, and you have a specific set of people that only you can reach, just like I have a specific set of people that only I can reach. So it's very important to be comfortable in our own identities and know that our creativity and our own individuality is just as important and just as needed as the next person's. We all have something to bring to the table. So it's okay to admire other people and be inspired by other people, but we have to be careful not to compare ourselves to other people to the point where we're diminishing our own light. So that's very important that you've mentioned that. It's important to connect with people that will help us to walk in our own light, as opposed to trying to be a carbon copy of someone else. So very valid point that you've mentioned.
Yeah, comparison is the thief of joy. So just don't do it. Like, you are in your own lane, no matter what you do, or you are, be yourself. Like, there's only one you, literally. Like, God divinely and uniquely created you to do what you were called to do. So comparing yourself to others, why? Like, that's their, right? You have yours.
Exactly. Now I see that you've accomplished a lot, over the past few years. But however, in terms of like publications, have you had the opportunity to get any of your poetry published?
So I've had small things, an online platform, like an online blog. I've been able to have my words published on like a couple of online blogs. There's a magazine / newspaper here in Massachusetts, actually in the nearest city, Springfield. They recently published one of my poems. And it's been like smaller things like that, kind of like some online, like a few online publications, and this newspaper, this magazine as well. As far as a full out book or a chat book, that has always been in the works. I actually wrote a chat book over the pandemic. It just hasn't been published yet, and I really kind of want to add to it and make it a little more than what it is now. Before I do go forth with the publishing process, I kind of, I applied to different competitions to kind of get it published through a publishing house and things like that. And those are highly competitive. So haven't necessarily hit the jackpot on one of those yet, but I know it's always the self-publishing route. And I think for me, I kind of just, I wanted to be, if I'm going to go that route, then I can just take my time. I'm not rushing to meet a publication or a competition deadline. And I can take my time and really craft it to be what I want it to be. And right now, I kind of just feel like my work, I still have some work to do on my work before I want to put it out to the world. And it could just be a self-conscious thing. It could just be like, oh, this is my baby and I want it to be perfect. And, it going out into the world and it being less than perfect. And we know that perfectionism is just unattainable, right? And so it's kind of just like, it might not ever be ready, right? But it'll be what it's supposed to be when it's supposed to be. And so I think I'm just kind of waiting to continue to add to it so that I can make it what I feel like it's supposed to be at the time that it's supposed to be. So to answer your question, long story short, no, I don't have a book out yet, but that'll be in the works at some point in the future. But I do actually have Lyrical Faith merch. So I've been shirts and crew necks and things that kind of like help you exude different words or phrases from my poetry. So that's kind of like my way of putting something out into the world, having kind of like, there's a shirt. It's called the Faith in Poetry merch line. And so there I have shirts and crew necks that say Faith in Poetry. And it's, obviously it's a play on my name, but it's a reminder to, myself and others to have faith in your work, to have faith in your poetry, right? And so for the folks who, want to rock that, right? You know what I'm saying? Like it's a message behind everything. Yeah. There are other phrases as well that emulate different phrases and things like that I've said throughout my poems. And so if you listen to my set or whatever the case might be in my poems and things like that, you'll have a connection to, what's on the shirt. So that's kind of like how I'm, doing things right now.
Yeah, that's what's up. And I peeped a couple of those shirts. Definitely dope merchandise. No question. I'm feeling it.
Thank you.
Definitely. Now,
the online store will be set up soon.
Oh, yes. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to that for sure. Now, you describe yourself as an activist. Does activism play a part in your poetry? And if so, how? In what way?
Yes. So, oh gosh, okay. From college, I would definitely, let's actually even go back. Senior year of high school, I was already involved in the Harlem Bomb Shelter. I was already performing and doing my thing. That senior year of high school was 2012. And as we all know, in 2012 was the murder of Trayvon Martin. Mm. And as a high school student, as an 18-year-old at the time, we're all so moved, we're all so shocked, we're also emotionally driven by this situation, because we just know in our hearts, yes, many things like this have happened in the past, but there was something about that time period that just made us all feel very, this is wrong. We need to put our voices to this. Like, as artists and as creators, we needed to put our voices to it. And so there were so many Trayvon Martin poems, as we know. I have one, Anubis has one, tons of people in the poetry circuit world who was writing and, performing at that time probably have one or reference Trayvon Martin in one way or the other. And then, as we know, that instance, that tragic murder was, actually his birthday is coming up soon. Trayvon was an Aquarius, just like me. But yeah, I mean, that tragic murder spearheaded eventually the creation of the Black Lives Matter movement, right? It was really the following year, 2013, summer of 2013, July to be exact, when the acquittal, right, of George Zimmerman was announced. That is when there was the uprising of the Black Lives Matter movement, right? And I remember where I was and what I was doing, and I'm pretty sure a bunch of other people, I'm pretty sure you all do too. But I remember I was outside, like it was summertime, it was July, we were at a barbecue like in the park, and everything was all good, and we knew that the trial was going on and everything, and we were just hoping for the best. And then once that acquittal was announced, like we opened social media and it was kind of just like, so yeah. I think that, so from that point on, right, then, I went off to college. I'm in college between the years of 2012 and 2016, and so many things happened during that time period as well. But in particular, Ferguson, right? The tragic murder of Mike Brown happened during those years, 2014, 2015, right? There were protests on campus. There were, die-ins in the library. There were, social media protests and things like that. So I wrote a poem about that as well. And I was asked, and because people knew me around campus as this poet, right, I was asked to perform at the protests, right? I was asked to perform at the die-ins. I was able to perform with these poems in competitions and, in workshops and in events and things like that to give voice to that issue, right? And so at those moments, like I knew, I felt, I believed that this was a part of my calling. Like I am not only am I just writing because I want to express myself and I want to, release my emotions and things like that, but I am called to bring voice to particular issues in society that need this voice, right? There is no social movement in the history of political and social movements that has existed without art, that has existed without poetry, right? We are the griots and the storytellers of the movement, right? And so I considered myself to be a part of that by being so emotionally charged and driven to write and perform about these issues, because as a Black woman, I felt very affected. I felt they were out of body experiences of me just feeling like I could wake up one day and be walking down the streets and get shot, and there's nothing, and my murderer will get away, right? There's nothing that anyone can do. There's, a mother will be crying, a mother, like there's nothing that that can be done. And, you know, that made me feel like I need to use my voice to speak on these issues. And I need to use my voice to spread this word, to help others, to incite the change or incite the awareness in others, to charge others to be active in the movement and to use their voices as well, because nothing will happen if we remain silent. And that's also how it's very important that I use my words to speak on those things as well.
That's awesome. And that's very powerful. And that kind of leads me to my next question. You've heard the word representation thrown around in different circles. Now, in terms of representing yourself, how important is it for you to represent yourself in your totality, like as far as being a woman of color, woman of faith, you know, ethnicity, culture, you know, all of those factors taken into consideration? How important is it to you to make sure that you're representing yourself in your totality through your poetry?
Yeah, I think as a Black woman, it's very important. As we know, one of our giants, Bell Hooks, just passed away recently, and back in December. And that was like a really rough one, as somebody who was a scholar, somebody who I've studied her work, I've read her book, whose words have touched millions of lives, and who just cared so deeply about putting certain messages out into the world about love and feminism and activism and things of that nature. And so she actually said, there's a quote by her that says, no woman writer, no woman writer has written enough, right? And it's I don't want to misquote her, but essentially it's saying that no woman writer has written enough, right? Like, women writers like need to continue writing and continue using words, because there are not enough women writers, because as we know, right, our narratives in society are controlled by men, are controlled by rich people, are controlled by white people, are controlled by the dominant groups. And so it's really important that, as somebody who is a Black woman who has particular experiences in this world that men don't experience, that you know, that white women don't experience, Black men.
Right. Facts.
I feel charged to write about these Black woman experiences, these Black woman feelings that I have. And I have quite a few poems that speak on ideas of feminism and misogyny and you know, patriarchy, and just kind of like my own personal feelings and experiences navigating through those days and those times and those experiences. So it's very important that I see myself in my work, and I see my experiences of people who look like me in my work, and that other Black women hear and feel themselves in my work as well, so that they know that they are seen and heard and acknowledged.
That's what's up. That's powerful and most definitely on point, which provides the perfect segue to this next segment, which is, it's time for Lyrical Faith to take the mic. Now, this is your time, Lyrical Faith, to share up to 5 poems of your choosing. You know, this is the portion of the podcast where you get to share with our audience, you know, what makes Lyrical Faith Lyrical Faith. So that this time the floor is yours.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. So I actually really want to start off like this. There is a poem. So being that I took you all a little bit through my journey of my past and college and finding my voice and things like that, I want to show you all a video from my senior year of college. This was back in 2015. I was on campus and I performed in a talent show. I performed in a talent show on campus, and the poem was inspired by the summer 2015 murders of the Charleston Nine, in the church shooting down in Charleston, South Carolina. My family is actually from South Carolina originally, and we had our family reunion in Charleston a couple years ago, and it was a really touching experience to be able to go back and see the actual church. But back in 2015, when it first happened, I was studying abroad. I wasn't even in the country at the time. I was in Paris, and we were studying the Black Arts Movement. And my professor actually opened up our class. It was like our second day of class with a moment of silence to inform us of what happened the night before at the church. And so I actually wrote this poem during my travels in Paris and performed it there for the first time as well. So I'm going to share this screen. This is from the talent show back in college that I did back in 2015. The poem is called Church Bells Ring. Can you see and can you hear it? I can't see you. Okay, great.
Yes,
all
you're
right.
good.
All right, here's the video.
Hey, Lyrical Faith, you might have to restart it. There's no visual.
Oh no. Hey, I'm sorry about that. You couldn't see the poem? You couldn't see the video?
Yeah, the video's not playing. The screen was black.
No. Okay, I'm trying this again. So sorry.
No worries, no worries. Double check the sound too, just in case.
The sound is on. Do you see my screen now?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right, so sorry about that. All right. Hear it? Can you hear it?
I can hear it, but can't see it.
How is it not?
For some reason, the screen keeps looking black for some reason.
All right, what about now? Do you just see like the regular YouTube page?
No, the screen's showing up black.
Why is this happening? I'm sorry, you all. So sorry.
No worries.
I'm gonna try to oh, you know what? Let me not optimize for video clip. How about this? Can you see it now?
Yeah, now we see it.
Now? Is okay?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good now.
Thank you.
Church bells ring. Their holy sound lights up hallways and wooden pews of prayer. Skin the color of noir, praise here. Negroes from Birmingham to Charleston give their praise here. Palms searching for answers as they class together through pages of Psalms hold strong here. Knees, body bent, hit carpet, ground and dust, heaven sent, but there was no heaven that sent blaze here. God just wouldn't send them up that way. Crimson carpet as they lay in their own blood stains. The walkway to redemption will never look quite the same. Poor souls, The angels have called them home today, and we ask why. Hate drives people to do selfish things like, I lost my grandmother in Charleston, lost my little sister in Birmingham, never knew a gun and a bomb could be held by the same hand over a 52-year span. See, I pray the KKK doesn't find a new church to call home again, or a new man to inject their hate into, so he too can creep through another Negro field, just looking for more Negroes to kill. They say, let's invade the place where they pray, so they can say their last prayers today. 4 little girls with wings on their backs looked down over another church in another small town and said, I remember when we heard that sound, that kaboom rise from the ground. Pastor be right in the middle of his sermon, Psalms 23, he say, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Now I see those men who blew up the church weren't only after me. And as far as my arms could reach, I stretched down far below while the cloud held up my feet and embraced 9 bodies to our kingdom today. 1 holy trinity times 3. Oh, he just knew 9 bullets would interrupt my sleep like 9 shots rang out and pierced wound through my dreams. Screeched such a bloody faith like I heard Pastor Martin scream. Heard footsteps marching through southern streets like riots. Front side of the 16th Street Baptist Church had Alabama hot like August, blazing like the bomb that blew up in September, firearmed like a Charleston church in June, where they said prayers for July and too soon. See, summer paint Negro red quicker than it tan him brown. Sometimes summer just shoot him down, bury him deep in the soil and engrave a tombstone in red, white, and blue, just to remind him that even when he's dead, they would still carve into you. Who taught that man to carry a lynch rope in his right hand? Everything he touched turned into murder. Then every court plead him free of such atrocity. But I say a system can't fail who it wasn't designed to protect, and a church can't protect who it wasn't designed to fail. Failed all my memories. Remind me of that moment of silence I had in class. Remind me of that moment of silence I had in the middle of a poem. Remind me when my breath stops, when your heart stops, when Malcolm X stops, when Martin King stops, when Rodney King stops, when Trayvon Martin stops, when Mike Brown stops, when Ferguson stops, when the pastor stops, when the preacher stops, when the deacon stops, and the church bell stops, and everybody bent down to surrender their souls until they met again at a light heaven sent. God's gonna trouble for Addie Mae Collins, Denise McNair, Cal Robertson, Cynthia Wesley of Birmingham, Clementa Pinckney, Sharonda Coleman Singleton, Tywanta Sanders, Ethel Lance, Myra Thompson, Cynthia Hurry, Susie Jackson, Daniel Simmons Sr., to Payne Middleton, Doctor of Charleston, rest in peace.
First place.
Wow.
Shout out to C-Jack. He was and wooden videographer. Okay, let me stop sharing screen for a moment. How are y'all feeling? Oh wow, I see the comments.
Yeah, comments are blowing up because that right there was fire.
Yeah,
I felt every word. Very powerful.
I appreciate that. I like to show that video because one, I can't ever do it like I did it like that. That was Kyra Niche. She was my mentor in college. She still is like one of my closest friends. And she was on the vocals, and I came to her and I was just like, listen, like, I wrote this poem. I have this idea. I really want to honor the Charleston Nine, and the whole experience with the Charleston Nine reminded me of the attack on Black churches at large. More popularly, we all remember the Birmingham Four, Birmingham Church. And so it just felt very unfair and very, I felt like, I needed to give voice to this issue, right? And so I wrote this piece honoring both of those situations. And we put visuals to it. We said we'll have this slideshow running in the background with all these pictures because we want people to feel, we want people to see, we want people to understand what they did to us. And so that was that piece. And that was my senior year of college. And and so moving forward, right, in giving voice to issues that I feel strongly about, right? As we all know, the protests of 2020 were something that shook up the entire nation, let alone the world, right? And I, being somebody from New York City who was there when the protests first started breaking out, I vividly remember it was like March 29th and the first protest happened at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And then every single day after that, there was a protest for the rest of the summer after the video of George Floyd went viral. Mm-hmm. And it was a moving and very emotional summer. We were already in the pandemic for a couple of months and people just didn't know what was going to happen next with the world. And obviously this isn't the first time a viral video of someone getting killed took place, right? But this was the first time the world was at this complete and full stop where everyone was kind of able to jump out and pay attention to it in such a way. And so for me, one of the first things that I noticed was the protests were generally justice for George Floyd, but it also was like, and Breonna Taylor. And it kind of just felt like Breonna Taylor's name was like swept in there. And, it took me some more research and understanding to find out that her murder actually took place several months before in her bed at her home. And I was kind of just like, well, then where was her protest? Because we're all jumping up and, it's all just for George Floyd. But I wanted to know where was this same energy when Breonna Taylor was murdered as well. And so for me, that wasn't a one-off instance, right? There are plenty of examples where Black women are murdered and their names are swept under the rug and where their names are just not as known as others, right? And so this piece I wrote during that time period, and it's called Black Women Die Too. Breonna Taylor, Jasmine Barnes, Sandra Bland. I say their names and they get forced to the back of the hashtag, placed at the end of the caption, Black woman die too, but their hearse is only visible when trailing the bodies of Black men. And while you roll your eyes and suck your teeth because this is such an unpopular topic, that's because this is such an unpopular topic. Do you know what it means for a Black woman to die at the hands of police once every month and no one to acknowledge the only thing magic about us is the fact that we keep disappearing? When I've spent countless conversations with men who will quote, by any means necessary, explaining to them what Malcolm X meant by the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman for the same reasons they cannot recall the last rally they showed up to for them. After Rekia Boyd was murdered, her brother, spoke out on why no one showed up to her protests. He said, they don't talk much about women who get killed by police. Even in death, they play second role. As if working the lowest pay wage gap despite being most qualified, being hypersexualized, but still get called hoe, be labeled angry and bitter and not suitable to be a wife, and the most prevalent targets of harassment in broad daylight or night aren't enough to prove that we play second role all our lives. You mean to tell me we can't even die in a news story first too? In fact, Black women are so forgettable, we can't even die in poems anymore. I have heard and written about Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Mike Brown, but never once heard a word about Betty Jones, Tanisha Anderson, Michelle Cusseau, and there I go, naming Black women again that nobody knows. If the statistic implies that an unarmed Black person dies at the hands of brutality every 28 hours, and most of which are men, and every time I bring up a Black woman's death unnoticed and response is a Black male death rate be higher, I hear that my body must be the lowest shelf at the warehouse, must come at a discount, must be quick to go on sale or a package deal. My body must be a second hand, and perhaps that's why we keep running out of time. We see the viral videos and go, just imagine the ones we don't know who die off tape and we can't, because the ones we don't know are also unnamed Black women who most won't remember anyway. It's not like we aren't the first ones showing up on the front lines. It's not like Black Lives Matter wasn't founded by 3 Black women. And in this moment, I am showing up to a protest tomorrow for George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, insert next hashtag here, but I wonder how many Black men would show up to mine or even remember the ones who preceded me. And here I go again. Tracia Kelly, Shelley Frey, Eleanor Bumpers, Yvette Smith. Say her name if you even know it. And that's that poem. How y'all feel? Y'all still with me?
Oh, my God, wow. That line was hitting where you said that where you was like, Black women can't even die in poems. Wow. Wow.
I told you I wrote about
Wow.
Trayvon, Eric Garner, and Mike Brown,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Listen.
That one line speaks volumes. Wow.
Right. And like, y'all know some of my stories. So like all of this, I don't write about anything that I haven't really felt or experienced in real time. So yeah, thank you. And so, all right. So with that being said, let's move on. So we talked about the protests, and there, you know, in that time period in going to protests, right, I remember it was a hot summer day. It was May 30th, and the protest broke out. And I remember I did this protest in New York City. It was from like, I think we met on like 125th Street. We walked all the way to West 4th Street and then up to 14th Street. And that was literally 7 miles in the hot, scorching sun. There were people who were getting dehydrated, right? And this was all in the name of like justice for George Floyd, justice for Ahmaud Arbery, justice for Breonna Taylor, right? And it was just a really eye-opening, shell-shocking experience. And so there are some things that I observed, and there are some things that I learned. And so this piece is called 7 Lessons. Seven lessons learned at the protest. 1, let the white people get in front. Nah, dead ass. We know Y'all wanted to be invited to the cookout, and praise God. This is the cookout. Can't you see the fire ablaze in the distance? Don't you smell the brown meat grilling? Hot, angry from years of being burned in the freezer, hungry from how long you've been left to rot. You asked for this upon building a cold shoulder to our existence on our backs, damn right. This ain't a democracy unless you icing down with me. So yeah, allow your white shield to cover me like a picnic of guilty tears. It's the least you can do after showing up early and bringing nothing for decades. 2, if a Black woman dies and there is no camera around to record, does it even make a tragedy? It's been almost 2 years and still no justice for the murder of Breonna Taylor, the murder of Rekia Boyd, the murder of Sandra Bland. The signs at the rally all read the signs at the rally all read America's kings of martyrdom, as if we are not running through the same plantation while you gather in these streets to demand a play-by-play for equality. Please do not forget the soil that planted every seed 3. It'll take a lot out of you. By the end of 7 miles, you will rattle in your bones. You will know what our ancestors meant by a long trek to freedom. You will gloom and distress knowing the war is far from over, knowing that we shall overcome, be several centuries away. Do you still walk? Do you take each step like a bomb, ticking on the inside of your psyche? Conjure up ways to rationalize this moment will be what my ancestors fought for and how my children will continue the fight. What if we never see liberation in our lifetimes? How do I live knowing my footsteps are just rehearsal to the performance of my eulogy? 4, the Birmingham movement lasted 37 days. The Freedom Rides lasted 7 months. The Greensboro sit-ins were 6 months. The Montgomery bus boycott was 382 days. Quit asking us when we will stop marching. We will stop marching when this country stops lynching us. 5, the soundtrack is Kendrick Lamar's All Right, NWA's Fuck the Police, YG and Nipsey Hussle's Fuck Donald Trump. The soundtrack is Nuck If You Buck, Tupac's Keep Your Head Up, and for the Saints, Tasha Cobb's Break Every Chain. Revolution by Kirk Franklin, and we're gonna praise while we dance in these streets. Shout Negro spirituals to the top of our lungs and demand you put some respect on our peace. 6, come prepared. Bring milk for the tear gas. Bring a thick shed of skin for the rubber bullets. Bring a pair of shoes you do not mind creasing. Move like your body is on fire. So instead of the precinct or the cop car, it was actually just every breath you ever took dragging balled its way up your throats and out onto the threatening. We told you, this is the cookout. How could you not expect for there to be flames? 7, you wanted an invite so bad, right? Well, here it is. Don't walk up empty-handed and then expect us to still fix you a plate. Poem. Whew.
Oh, bars, absolute bars. Jesus.
I was looking at the chat and like getting super distracted. So
I tried to get lines that grabbed me, and I was like, and I quoted like a picnic of guilty tears, and I was like, oh, but then you said yes, quit asking us to stop marching. I was like, yes, felt that.
No, I appreciate, I needed the love in the chat. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm saying I was looking at it during the performance and I was like, wait. I love, thank you. Loved every line. Thank you, Amira.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So just, keeping it moving. and just telling y'all more about my story, right? So another theme that I continue to embark heavily on throughout my poetry journey and throughout my writing was actually mental health, right? I began to become a little bit more introspective, right? And I wanted to reflect that in my writing. Because, you know, as you've all heard, and, you know, as I talked about, right, a lot of the things that I wrote about and performed about were very like what's going on in society and, you know, these issues that I wanted to bring voice to, right? But I also needed to think about what issues within myself do I want to bring voice to, right? And so I went on this whole journey with my mental health from actually in grad school. I started going to therapy and beyond grad school and still in therapy to this day. And I realized how necessary it was and how little Black mental health was discussed in the community, right? And I wanted to continue to give voice to that because it was something that I was dealing with very, very intensely, right? And so this piece was actually on the verge of me realizing more things about myself after I became more introspective and started seeking professional help. And, you know, I always wondered why, you know, I always felt like I was very anxious and I always felt, you know, depressed and anxious, but I really wasn't able to put my finger on it because it's not like I was like, you know, I wasn't like sitting at home all day and I wasn't, you know, I wasn't stopping the activities that I was doing. I was still going to school and going to work and doing my poems and going to shows and this, that, and the third. And I was always on go. So I was just like, maybe, you know, maybe it's not a big deal, right? Maybe I can just ignore it, right? And what I found out or what I came to realize is that the type of anxiety that I have is high functioning anxiety, which is why I was able to do all those things, but it was detrimental to me because I wasn't doing the internal work to actually be kind to myself. And so this piece is called Bad Day. So what if I told you that nobody cares if you're having a bad day? That there are no adult playpens with serotonin boosters to take your break in. No off button to press when you are at your desk getting hit with assignments and begin spiraling. Your boss is not doing mental health check-ins when you clock in. The reality is depression. Be the leading cause of disability worldwide. It seeps through minds like wet bodies lost at sea on days where high functioning anxiety makes coming up for air look easy. And here, you'll find me getting washed up on the tide, getting drifted by after the show, making flood of my schedule with nothing to pour into. High functioning anxiety is looking like you have a floaty in the big pool while everyone swims by, not realizing I am about to drown where I'm from, the city that never sleeps. We're bred to be indoctrinated on rushing for everything, to be reminded excuses are tools to be incompetent. Nobody cares. Work harder. Keep going. Rest when you are done and not when your body is a rusty car engine about to break down. So from young, I never knew how to have my hands in something without acting like my limbs weren't being chopped off to get there. I'm 27 years old and still have not mastered the art of saying no. And you would think with all of the help that exists, there would be a simple cure for this. But after 3 different therapists, a host of confusion, and a deep end of losses, there is no psychiatrist willing to diagnose me without chalking it up to my schedule, just being busy. And trust me, I've tried so many times. On the last encounter, I was categorized as having minor adjustment disorder with no meds or paperwork to prove it. So now I'm just a walking, talking misdiagnosis who doesn't understand why my hardest weeks feel like the grains of sand squeezing down through a broken hourglass whenever I look at the time, or why keeping my head above water on most days feel like every molecule of air in my lungs will suffocate. I am still learning how to ask for help, how to take my time, how to breathe, how to love myself while splashing to stay alive. And if anybody at all cares to ask, I will still struggle to convince myself that bad days are birthed out of buoyancy. And just maybe, I am too. Poem.
Wow. Felt that too. And you shine a light on the importance of mental health and, you know, acknowledging how you really feel, because we can all put on a face and pretend everything is fine when deep down, you know, you're going through hell and high water. So thank you for, you know, spitting that piece and making and exposing the realities of a person's mental condition.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah. And I guess for my last piece, my last piece, I just ended like this. I wanted to have some fun with this one. And, you know, like I said, as a Black woman, I do try to bring awareness to Black women issues. And sometimes we see that we see that often in popular culture, and particularly in music. And so a super dope R&B artist that I really love and appreciate, she dropped a super dope album about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago. And during that time period, I really was feeling it. And I wrote this poem because it brought a ton of thoughts to my mind about how Black women and music can sometimes often be portrayed. And so this is called Black Girl Blues. So Jasmine Sullivan released Hotels, and I sing the album to the top of my lungs, like every ancient nigga I know hears me in unison. Can't help but to connect my love for erotic music to the way Black women have produced some of the best melodic truths despite misogyny blasting louder than them. Like 2017 when SZA dropped Control. Both award-winning R&B projects are in conversation on what it means to be sensual. Both neo soul, sultry, superpower in the flesh, pro women need love too, but these niggas ain't trying to let us be great. Both absent of shame. When the album drops, men I know go, so which one was better? Who won the fight to hold feminism? As if they act the same when Future or Lil Wayne rap about every girl they'd like to fuck or impregnate, especially since they brag on how all their kids come from different women, but let old Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion rap about celebrating vagina, and it turns into months of social commentary on men's disgust and how vulgar these images are for girls growing up. But I'm confused. Wasn't the baby just snowboarding through semen down someone's throat in his last video? How women bodies are only glorified for the entertainment of men, yet being vulnerable about pleasure or desire or heartbreak or longing is scrutinized or out of the question. Instead of querying who conquered the anthem for liberal feminism, you should be asking why masculinity is so fragile to begin with. Why Black women always have to compete just to be told we cannot win, yet somehow feeling seen between these lyrics is the achievements. How praising less goddesses that be Cardi, Meg, Summer, Lizzo prove their voice has power to sing away the Black girl blues, can hand us a soundtrack to life on days when our lowest moments feel like every instrument in the studio be an orchestra on how not to love ourselves. Remind me This body is golden, can be temple both in WAP on the weekend and for a normal girl like me when he put it down. But patriarchy must have y'all fucked up. Just because we make arts about this pussy don't mean it's for everybody. The act of woman getting chastised for sex is an age-old myth. So songs like this bring us closer to heaven because Jesus was a feminist. The Gospel of John, chapter 8 states, Pharisees brought him a woman accused of adultery to express. Law commands she must be stoned to death. And Jesus said, I bet. He who is without sin, cast the first stone. And would you look at that? Silence. Poem. My name is Lyrical Faith. If you would like to find me or follow me, please connect with me on Instagram at Lyrical Faith Poetry. Putting it in the chat, that's Lyrical Faith, my name, LYRICALFAITH Poetry. Please like my page on Facebook and please subscribe to my YouTube page at Lyrical Faith.
Wow, wow, wow. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the epic poetics from Lyrical Faith. Powerful poetry, definitely relevant to the times we're living in. Very powerful and important topics. Thank you for so much for coming through. Awesome poetry. And I want to take these next few minutes before we close out to give our audience a chance to chime in during this Q&A session. So at this time, if there's anybody in the audience that has a question or comment for Lyrical Faith, you can unmute yourself and share your question or comment.
Well, of course, I have plenty of questions for Sister Lyrical Faith. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Wow, you saw my comment. Once again, you burnt the stage down. Yay. Clap it up, clap it up. We enjoyed the whole set. It was amazing. I can't think of one line in any of the poems that I did not gravitate towards. And it's just a pleasure seeing you once again. And thank you. Thank you for all your hard work. And it's truly appreciated by everyone out here. Thank you.
Thank
Not
you.
not a question, just more roses, that's it.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And I hope that you've been doing well. And it's so nice to hear your voice.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Amira, for that. And thanks for coming through. Anyone else on the line that'd like to share a question or a comment before we close out?
Hi, Lyrical Faith. This is Shelly. I really enjoyed all of your poetry. I love your delivery. So I just want to say thank you for an amazing night and hearing amazing talent.
Thank you so much, Shelly. I appreciate that. I'm so glad that you enjoyed. Thank you for listening.
Awesome. Thanks, Shelly, for that. That's awesome. Now, before we close out, I'm just going to share my screen one more time because I feel it's very important, as with all my other guests, to make sure I say thank you. First and foremost, thank you, Lyrical Faith. Your poetry is fire. Love your energy. Love your subject matter. You know, you're really displaying yourself to be a light. You know, and you know, I just want to encourage you. Keep doing your thing. Keep being yourself. Keep bringing that energy. Keep bringing your truth. Always a pleasure to experience your poetry, and I wish you much success with your future endeavors. Awesome conversation. Glad you were able to come through. I was so looking forward to this, and you made my night. Thank you so much. To those of you that wish to follow Poets with Purpose, you can follow on Facebook through the Facebook group Poets with Purpose, also on Twitter @PoetsWPurpose, YouTube channel of the same name, and I just recently joined Clubhouse @The Anointed Pen. Stay tuned for episode 24. I got another awesome poet coming through by the name of Roxanne Hoffman. That podcast episode is scheduled for Saturday, March 5th 2022 at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And for more information about my podcast or my workshop, you can call me at 646-372-6230 or email me at poetswithpurpose@gmail.com. All my flyers and graphic design work is done by the awesome team of Eclipse Graphics. You can find them on Instagram at @Eclipse Graphics New York. You can see more samples of their work there and connect with them there if you're interested in them doing any work for your projects. And lastly, those of you interested in making a donation, you can make donations through PayPal, Tap Media Man, Cash App, $The Anointed Pen, or through Zelly through my phone number. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap. Lyrical Faith, thank you so much for coming through. Thank you to tonight's audience. This video will be uploaded to all of my social media channels, I would say within the next hour or so. So be on the lookout for that, and you'll be able to share it amongst your own social media channels. So with that, I bid you all good night. Thank you, Lyrical Faith. Thank you to my audience. Thank you all for your support. Have a good night and God bless.